Hi everyone, I'm the narrator, your guide to a peaceful night's rest. If you're here to unwind, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more soothing content. I'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are? Now settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin our journey to relaxation. The city after the rain shimmered with a damp, cold glow in the night, and puddles under the street lamps reflected twisted hues of orange and yellow. As I dragged my suitcase into that time-worn apartment building, a wave of dank, musty odor hit me like an invisible hand tightening around my heart. The wooden door panels, eroded and cracked by wind and rain, oozed mottled silver halos from their fissures as though warning me. Here lie secrets best left untouched. The dim corridor stretched toward an unseen terminus, its walls mottled and the sconces flickering. Each step felt like treading upon a sealed memory. My footsteps rang out sharply in the silence, only to be swallowed by the decaying floorboards, becoming spectral and indistinct. My heart trembled to that rhythm, as if sensing a pair of eyes silently watching from the depths of shadow. At last, I stood before the door to my new apartment, the cold metal key poised in my hand. And yet I hesitated to turn it. The air was heavy, as though every breath had grown viscous. When the key finally slipped into the lock, a faint click shattered the hush, only to be replaced by an even deeper stillness, as if something were waiting or watching. The door eased open to reveal a sickly yellow interior. The chandelier overhead sagged at one corner. Discarded cardboard boxes left by the previous tenant were heaped in a corner, and in the center of the room sat a collapsed fabric sofa. In that instant, my chest tightened. I knew that everything was only just beginning. I lingered behind the door until the corridor's light receded, swallowing my silhouette, then stumbled into the room. The air inside clung thickly, heavy with an indistinguishable stench of decay. I closed the door and heard the chain snap into place with a sharp clack, as though sealing away some unseen breath. With only my phone's faint glow to guide me, I surveyed the space. On the wall hung a half-worn wooden clock, its hands frozen in time. In the corner lay a stack of yellowed newspapers, as if silenced by bitter winds long ago. And most arresting of all, on the windowsill rested an antique copper badge, its surface carved with a crow in mid-flight, its silent watch upon every breath. I stepped lightly toward the sofa, my fingertips grazing the upholstery, and recoiled at the icy dampness. I raised my hand to flip on the light, only to find the wall switch so loosened by time that it snapped off at the slightest touch. A jolt shot up my arm as if I'd been struck by electricity. I stumbled back, breath coming in frantic gasps. As I fumbled in the gloom for the spare table lamp, a corner of the abandoned cardboard box split with a sharp crack, the sound rippling faintly through the room. I froze and listened, but all I heard was my own heartbeat and that almost imperceptible scrape of metal. I plugged in the lamp. Its weak yellow glow wavered like a dying campfire, quickly swallowed by the encroaching shadows. At the edge of its light, the cracks in the wall seemed to writhe like lips, as if eager to whisper some long-buried secret. I drew a shuddering breath, shook my arm clear of the shock, and resolved, at least for now, to settle in and unveil the apartment's past. But as I bent to lift a stray box, a low rumble rolled down from the ceiling, as though something heavy were being dragged upstairs. I jerked my head up. A shadow flickered in the ceiling's crack, as if something unseen was watching me. I stood frozen as the lamp's beam trembled, carving a winding path of light that pointed directly at the clock. And in that instant, its minute hand ticked forward by one notch. The room fell utterly silent, and an unnamed chill seized my chest as if I were about to be swallowed whole. When I woke in the dead of night, I found myself curled on the sofa, the lamp still pulsing its feeble yellow glow. The rumble from above echoed in my mind like someone stirring in the earth below. Through the skylight, the moon cast a hazy silver light, and tree branches projected ghostly shadows across the walls, like countless hands beckoning. I draped my coat over my shoulders and stumbled to the window, easing it open a crack. A gust of cold air rushed in, carrying the distant sound of empty wheels rolling over puddles, and a strange, sickly, sweet scent. It felt eerily familiar and yet revolting, like fresh soil turned over in an ancient grave. I coughed, desperate to slam the window shut. Turning back inside, I stubbed my toe on a corner of the wall and spotted a narrow crack just wide enough for half a finger. Kneeling, I trained my phone's dim beam into the gap and saw a layer of dark brown dust, as if someone long ago had deliberately sealed something away. My heart thundered as I reached in to brush aside the debris, and my fingertip brushed a corroded copper coin, the same crow engraved on its surface. The instant I drew my hand back, faint footsteps sounded behind me, as though a shadow pressed itself against the wall and crept closer. I looked up and saw the clock's minute hand on the wall slip forward another notch on its own. The air froze. I held my breath, feeling a wave of cold climb from my feet up my spine. Dawn had not yet broken, and the sky remained dim as I returned to that corner. My knuckles were still chilled, but my resolve had hardened. Raising my hand, I gently pried open the crack. Dust motes scattered like a fine gray mist. I inhaled deeply and tucked the crow-emblazoned copper coin into my pocket. Glancing upward, I could just make out a half-open wooden door behind the wall, its panels mottled and peeling as though rasping a hoarse whisper. Silent footsteps drew nearer. I trained my phone's beam on the crack beneath the door and saw a pitch-black corridor. The beams overhead were stained with dried blood. I stifled a gasp and pushed the door. The hinge groaned a weary sigh. As it creaked open, it revealed what looked like a storage room. A yellowed map hung on the wall, red lines circling several decrepit floors. The floor was littered with tattered diaries bearing covers inscribed month in lopsided yet legible script. Even more unsettling than the musty odor was a faint whisper in the air, so tenuous it seemed someone was softly leafing through those diaries. I stepped inside and an icy chill wrapped my arms as the lamp's beam flickered. Bending to lift a diary, I suddenly sensed a long shadow flicker behind me. I spun around. Nothing. The yellow tube lamp overhead blinked once, and the diary on the floor had flipped open to reveal a single line scrawled in blood-red ink. The deeper I go, the less I can escape. My heart slammed to a halt as the door behind me slammed shut with a thunderous bang, splintering wood everywhere, and total darkness swallowed me whole. The walls dissolved into boundless darkness, leaving only me and the crimson script on the first page trembling in the faint cone of my phone's light. My breath felt weightless. My heart pounded like a drum. Summoning what little courage I had left, I bent to lift the diary, but the moment my fingertips brushed the yellowed paper, I felt a subtle quiver as though the words themselves were writhing. I jerked my hand back, and on the phone screen a fresh line had scrawled itself across the page. "It's watching you. Don't turn around." The air behind me froze solid, and an icy spike shot from my spine to the crown of my head. I swallowed a mouthful of scalding saliva and reached for the door again, desperate to flee to the staircase, only to find a set of stumbling footprints at the threshold, and they were not mine. They ran straight toward the ladder hatch and then vanished into thin air. A plaintive whisper rose from the depths below, a sound like centuries of sorrow echoing through the walls and striking my eardrums. My body convulsed. The fluorescent tube overhead flickered violently, and a slender silhouette slid down the stair railing, inching closer with every deliberate step. The figure was gaunt, almost inhuman, and each footfall rang out like a mallet striking the boards of a prison cell. Somehow I realized it was dragging a heavy chain behind it. The metal clinked clang-clang on the floor, matching the frantic tempo of my own heartbeat. I could not move. A hoarse whisper pressed against my ear. "Take me with you. Don't leave me down here alone." A blade of cold cleaved through my memories. For a dizzying moment, I could not tell whether the bloodstain on the opener page or the shadow on the floor was more real. Lightning fast, the light pulsed again, and the figure hovered at the edge of the lamp's circle, suspended in mid-air. Its hair streamed behind it like black tendrils, mouth agape in a silent abyss. I collapsed to the floor as the cone of my phone's light locked onto that faceless wraith. The air itself seemed to be sucked away, leaving only that haunting plea echoing in my ears, and the trembling I could no longer contain. My knees shook. My back pressed against the cold wall, and I couldn't tear my eyes from the ghostly form hanging in the void. Its breath, low and formless, was synced to mine, a tide drawn up from some subterranean abyss, ready to drown all reason. Seconds later, it gently lifted its faceless skull, the long hair atop its head swaying slowly in the air. Light and shadow wove strange patterns across its form, like a warped canvas come to life. A broken moan rose in my throat, but it swallowed the sound in an instant. Who are you?" I forced out a word, my voice echoing hollowly through the stairwell. The answer came on a cold gust, brushing my arm with whispered fragments. "I am the Forgotten One. My name is hidden only here." It gestured toward the blood-stained diary in my hand. I nearly recoiled, but curiosity and fear wrestled inside me, driving me to clutch the yellowed pages once more. By the dim light, I flipped to the final entry. When I looked up, the words on the page had changed from what I'd seen the night before. "Undo my bonds. Restore my name. Then, awaken those who slumber." A roar filled my mind as though countless voices called out at once. When I lifted my eyes, the apparition nodded faintly, its slender finger pointing toward the hidden door downstairs. An entrance I'd never noticed, half concealed and thick with dust. My feet moved as if pulled by unseen strings. I stumbled toward the secret doorway, and the specter followed, its silent footsteps echoing behind me like an incantation. Beyond the door lay winding stone steps descending into the very bowels of the house. I drew a steadying breath and swallowed my fear. The beam from my phone's light danced across the damp walls, casting flickering splotches where mildew and decayed earth clung. In that silence, my heartbeat matched its breath. Just before I stepped into the darkness, I spun around, searching for an escape. But the ghost had vanished, leaving only a faint trail of footprints that led down the spiraling stairs. There was no turning back. The stone steps beyond that hidden door seemed endless, each footfall reverberating with the dull scrape of dust against the walls. The treads were no longer uniform, but broken and jagged, as if every slab had borne countless strangers' steps and succumbed to the ravages of time. I probed ahead with my phone's weak beam. The flaking paint revealed mottled brick and stone beneath, like the house's wounds laid bare. The damp air reeked of rust and rotting wood, thick enough to choke on. Just as I crossed the threshold into the basement, a soft hiss emerged from the depths, Coiling through the darkness like an alarmed snake, my chest tightened and my flashlight wavered, casting jittering patches of light. The beam swept across an old desk strewn with dried petals and a dust-covered candlestick, remnants of some secret gathering. In its center sat a goblet cracked at the rim, its base stained a dark, rusty red, traces of dried liquid lingering within. I couldn't help but lean in. My fingertip brushed the stained edge, and an icy chill gripped my shoulder, as if unseen hands had closed around me. I whirled around, but there was nothing. Then the antique mirror beside the desk trembled. In its glass, I saw not only my terrified reflection, but the faint outline of that pale specter, glimpsed for an instant, then gone. It's still here, I whispered, my heart pounding so fiercely it felt as though it would shatter my eardrums. In the distance, in a shadowed corner, a heavy iron door hung ajar. A sickly yellow glow seeped through the crack, both a beckoning and a warning. My feet moved of their own accord, as though I'd been pulled forward like a marionette. With each step I sank deeper into fog, and each breath felt drawn into an unknown whirlpool. Behind me the specter's whisper rose again, soft as cicada song. Come, here, undo the lock of my slumber. My hand trembled as I lifted the flashlight and aimed it at the half-open iron door. Scorched symbols etched into the frame flickered in and out of view, like remnants of some ancient curse. Beyond lay the final barrier to the house's deepest vault. Rusted chains coiled around the hinge, whispering that once this door opened, there would be no turning back. I gritted my teeth and twisted the latch. The grinding of chain links against gears sounded like cries from a tomb, echoing ever more urgently in my ears. Moonlight filtered through a narrow vent, and in the gloom beyond the iron door, two eyes gleamed, cold, silent, and brimming with expectation. In that moment, I knew the true abyss was only just opening. With a low, mournful creak, the door slid fully open. Invisible hands tugged at the heavy chains, each link protesting as though on the verge of snapping. Behind it lay a narrow stone corridor whose walls were studded with countless bronze bells, their surfaces mottled with rust like sentinels standing mute. A faint candlelight drifted from the far end, each sconce carefully placed but evidently unlit for years, their wicks charred black, testament to a long-forgotten pause. I raised my flashlight. Its beam slashed through the darkness to reveal ancient patterns on the flagstones, twisted vines encircling a hollow hexagram, as if this space itself were bound by some otherworldly geometry. As I set foot on the floor, it trembled slightly, and the bells chimed in response, their echoes ricocheting through the corridor's depths. At the corridor's end, a stone door lay half-leant against the wall. A sliver of pale light shone from behind it like a smoldering ember in the silence. I traced the cold rim with my fingertips, its chill seeping to the bone. Pushing it open, I revealed a circular altar chamber. In its center stood an open grimoire, its pages yellowed and flickering as if in a breeze. Rust-colored ink formed archaic symbols and broken incantations, each line seeming to murmur, inviting an unwelcome guest ever closer. The candelabrum behind me burst into flame without a breath of wind, its orange-red glow instantly banishing the shadows from every corner. In one dark alcove, a featureless clay statue cast a frenzied silhouette in the dancing light, as if trembling beside the altar. The air was thick with the scent of ancient spices, yet laced with damp decay, blurring the line between the breath of life and a curse of death. My chest felt as though struck by a sledgehammer, each inhale ragged and urgent. The incantations in the ancient grimoire before me flickered in the candlelight as though poised to leap from the pages. Behind me, the bronze bells tinkled again, each note both urging me forward and warning me away. I drew a shuddering breath and reached to close the tome, my lips trembling as I whispered, "Is the truth hidden here?" In the hush, the pages turned themselves, uncovering ever deeper taboos. My gaze was riveted to the flitting text. The mingled scent of ink and dust seemed to murmur forbidden secrets with every line. Tentatively, I extended a quaking finger to trace one of the rune-inscribed sentences, and in that instant, an icy surge of energy leapt from the parchment into my flesh, as frigid as a glacier's heart. The flagstones beneath the altar shuddered. A hairline crack snaked along the seam as though the earth itself, imprisoned for a millennium, had finally sighed. The clay statue's shadow ceased its stillness in the firelight. It writhed, slow and deliberate, like a long dormant beast breaking free of its chains. Its grotesque form sharpened with every flicker of flame. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding like a drum in a cavern's depths. Then all at once the bronze bells rang out together, low, sonorous, and relentless, as if summoning some ancient power from the abyss. Each reverberation carved a chilling echo into my skull. The candle flame danced like a furious dancer's glance back in time. In the flickering light and shadow on the walls, twisted visages took shape, countless eyes peering from the darkness, thirsting for my fear. I knew then that the ritual had been awakened and that I had become its silent sacrifice. Cold sweat traced rivulets down my temples. Swallowing a mouthful of dry saliva, I forced myself to vocalize the shattered incantation at the grimoire's end. Each syllable laden with the lament of a forgotten age, like a dirge echoing through a sealed stone crypt. The instant the incantation echoed, the air around the altar writhed violently, as if invisible fingertips were twisting it tight, emitting a tearing hum. From the crack in the floor emerged not dust, but a jet of pitch-black smoke. Alive, it snaked through the room, devouring candlelight and silence alike, until before my eyes it coalesced into a vague humanoid outline, tall and gaunt, its skull tilted as though silently scrutinizing me. In the darkness, I thought I saw my own reflection cast upon that void, my eyes brimming with an indescribable terror and pity. I understood then that no matter how the bells tolled behind me, no force could fully dispel this unknown power. It was now entwined with me. As the obsidian figure solidified from the smoke, the candles trembled as if caught in a gale, and I could barely discern its true face. It had no features, only gaping emptiness that exuded a corrosive force, slowly ensnaring my soul. My heartbeat faltered, my chest felt gripped by an invisible hand, and my breath came in ragged gasps. Then in that moment, the final line of the grimoire burst into flame. From the ashes, a flicker of light sprang forth. Hope, perhaps, glinting at the edge of this abyss. Trembling uncontrollably, I summoned every ounce of courage to direct that glow at the shapeless mass. The light struck like a blade, slashing through the shadow's cloak, and with a searing white flash it exploded outward. The shockwave nearly sent me sprawling. In an instant, the air cleared and grew piercingly cold, as though time itself had paused. The figure writhed and collapsed in the glare like a demon dragged from its cavern, letting out a low, mournful wail. That cry pierced every bone in my body, striking at the core of my most fragile fears. As the smoke dissolved, a pair of deep red eyes peered out from the hollow. Embodying despair and rage, it cast me one final look as if to accuse me why disturb my rest. Then in a heartbeat, all vanished. The room fell deathly silent. The fissure in the floor had closed. The altar lay undisturbed once more. Ashes piled quietly as though nothing had ever been disturbed. Only I remained, the grimoire in my hand now blank page after blank page as if it had never been written. I sank to the floor, my heart hammering like a startled bird's wings, my breath still jagged and uneven. Only then did I realize I had not truly vanquished that darkness. It had merely retreated into a deeper cleft, patiently awaiting the next unwary intruder. With trembling hands, I closed the book, a fierce longing to uncover the truth kindling in my chest. Some secrets once revealed can never be forgotten, and some uncanny presences, even when banished, leave an indelible mark upon the soul.